Jay here from Stretford, Paddock. This is the Paddock Podcast. Joining me, as always, is Mr. Joe Smith. How you doing?
I'm doing very well, thank you. How are you doing?
I'm really good. I am. I'm over it already.
I don't even remember it.
Well, there we go. We've covered it. We don't need to analyse it anymore. If you know what we're on about, you do. And if you don't worry about it. Also, we've got a special guest, a friend of the channel from The Guardian, Jamie Jackson. How are we doing, Jay?
I've never been better, thank you.
Never been better. We were just talking about the tour and all that. Looking forward to going over to the US.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great country. I've been there a few times with United, and I think it should be interesting because obviously by that sort of time, Ten Hag might have added a player, might not have done. We'll see what's going to happen. You know what I mean? This summer, will the club ever be sold? We may well get onto that later. But yes, so of course I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, if we've not signed anyone by then, it's going to be meltdown central. We've got to the end of July and we're still not signed anyone. Or the owners might have gone and we might have signed everyone. Get involved in the chat and the comments for Jamie. Give us your questions for him. We're going to be chatting about some of his recent articles. We're going to be talking about outgoings, what's happening with Fred, what's happening with Maguire. Talking about some incomings, Harry Kane, obviously, Mason Mount. Also a little bit about the ownership as well. And a little nod to Zlatan Ibrahimovic. Came into United with a right bit of swagger in it. And obviously he's announced his retirement at the age of 41. As well, it's mad because when he left United, everyone thought he was done, and he's had another 6 seasons, scored about another 90 goals. So we'll be chatting about all that. We'll start off with just on transfer front. There's been talk of this being sort of mass exodus or Ten Hag just absolutely going ruthless in the summer with the players he's going to let go. You've written a few pieces on it. Who do you think sort of is the most likely candidates to be going out of the players that maybe get a few quid?
Well, the most high profile is the one you just mentioned. Before the World Cup, I got a bit of info that, they were planning then to sell Maguire. And the sort of challenge they had was, could they get enough money for, to be worth sort of, obviously nowhere near 80 million?
80 million,
and actually Fred was part of that sort of discussion at the time, because that's obviously how far ahead they plan. Now, Maguire, I would be staggered if he's still there in September. I just don't see it. I don't think he wants to be there. Ten Hag certainly doesn't want him, as I understand it. Now, Fred, I mean, it's more in the balance, but it's interesting that he spoke about his future after the cup final and said, I'm going to have to discuss it with Ten Hag, the club, my family. It's probably a little bit of a toss-up between him and McTominay. I don't think both of them will go.
Right.
Only because, listen, in a perfect world, from Ten Hag's point of view, and he's never told me this directly, but as I understand it, both of them would go if they could get to him. But it's about numbers as well. It's the same thing with the centre backs. I think, if Maguire goes, Lindelof stays, for example, I don't think they're going to add a right back. I think they want, striker is the position. We discussed this before. You only had to look at the bench on Saturday. No disrespect and all that sort of thing, but bringing on Weghorst to try and save a cup final is not great if you're Manchester United. And it's not Ten Hag's fault, it's not the players' fault. But again, I wrote a piece in January it was in the beginning of February when they failed, in my view, to back him. When there was a little glimmer when you beat City actually at Old Trafford in that derby, when you might have caught Arsenal. Listen, it's a little bit sort of tenuous because of the depth of the squad. But what I'm trying to say is, Liverpool got Gakpo. Newcastle got the Everton player, the winger.
Anthony Gordon.
Yes. And you ended up with...
Arsenal got Trossard as well, didn't they?
Yeah, and also the midfielder, the Italian lad from Chelsea. And you got Weghorst and Sabitzer as loans, sticking plasters. And so you need a striker. Harry Kane's interesting. I heard the other day, I'm not saying I heard this as an info I would print, but someone was talking, Daniel Levy might go as high as 200 million. I mean, I'm sorry.
No.
I just don't see him even trying that. And part of the problem, I think, with this Levy thing is, I don't really think he's that much of a hard negotiator. It's just a sort of myth thing. I think he's not the best businessman, so sometimes he doesn't make the right decisions because he likes to sort of dig his feet in, dig his heels in, sorry. And therefore that makes him out, they had a little bit of issue getting Carrick out of Spurs going all those years back. I remember doing that story.
Do you remember people were moaning, United fans were moaning about the fact we paid, was it 40 million a season for Carrick?
That you make that point, because when you look at Daniel Levy's sort of transfer CV, it's not this sort of illustrious huge prices for average players. He doesn't sell people for massive money. He just either doesn't sell them at all, or he sells, like Modric, what was it, 30 million? Like, it was a lot of money back then, but he's not getting unbelievable money for players. He just doesn't sell players that often. He's got this thing where he's willing to just shut it all down.
And you could make a case that if he backed Pochettino, he might still be here. And they wouldn't have wasted all the money on Conte, Mourinho. I've sort of lost track of who else has been in there. Do you know what I mean?
Was the other one?
You know what I mean? So, anyway, so to go back to Kane, Real Madrid seem to be maybe, interested now that Benzema.
I get that. I've always thought that with Kane, and obviously I don't know, but this sort of the prospect of him becoming the Premier League all-time top scorer might sway him.
I can't imagine there's a chance he ends his career with no trophies.
Yeah.
That isn't it. I mean, it's kind of in your hands, but it's not, because if the 10 around you aren't good enough, you're not going to win anything.
Yeah.
But he can we know he can fire a team that is 6th or 7th best in the league. He can get 30 goals for that team. He can almost do the 260 by himself, which is obviously what he needs to equal Shearer. Yes. I think that surely he must, if nothing else, he has to finish his career with that record, because if he doesn't, there's a chance he's not done that, not won any trophies, not done anything. Like, I can't imagine a world where he goes to Real Madrid, because even they didn't win the league this season. Typically they win, in the last sort of decade or two, they only tend to win 2 or 3 La Ligas every decade. They're not the dominant league force.
Here's a question for you, right? If Levy doesn't let him go because he's got a year left, would you take him next summer on a free? Another year, because the sort of player he is, I know it's a cliche, but he doesn't rely on his pace. Yeah. He's a proper pro. So you could, it could be another Benzema in terms of his longevity. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like another 4 or 5 years. I'm not saying that's what you'd want. I know you want him this summer, but I'm just, because I think he's probably going to ask at least 100.
If we had a striker that we brought in this summer, then yeah. What I wouldn't want us to do is go, well, we'll just wait. We'll just have Marcus down the middle, and we'll try Anthony Martial when he's fit. And, maybe Sancho can play down. We have to bring in a 9. There
is one scenario, though, we haven't yet discussed, which is Greenwood.
No, that's
what I mean? Because no one really knows. No. But what I do know is, when I did this story, it was a bit ago, it was when all the charges were dropped, but they were split then. You know what I mean? Like, football kind of wanted him, if I can put it that way, the football, not the suits there. Yeah. Because various reasons, because of what a good player is, but they felt it was a duty of care. He'd actually been found guilty of anything. Do you know what I mean? The lad's innocent in the eyes of the law. And there was the whole sort of, going against that maybe. Well, this is Manchester United. This is a difficult. It was a bit of, from their point of view, no one has ever said this to me. I think they might have preferred it to be taken out of their hands. This decision. But what I'm trying to say is, maybe already that decision has been made, right? And maybe he's staying. So therefore, because the thing about Kane, right, they definitely want him, but I don't know this is obvious about any transfers, but it's been around a bit. They don't want a whole summer-long pursuit, being messed around by Levy, get to whatever it is, 28th of August, it's off, and then a bit like Frankie de Jong in a way, what happened there. Although you rescued that with Casemiro, obviously, getting him in.
There has to be some decision on Greenwood soon, and I can't imagine that they haven't had enough time to come up with one. Because since when were the charges dropped? 3-4 months ago?
Yeah, that's
long enough, isn't it?
It was interesting as well that Ten Hag said it wasn't his decision. He said recently, it's not my decision with Greenwood. Yeah. So it's obviously
he'll have input though. Yeah. They will ask him. Look, because what they would have done was chess moves it through. If we keep him, for example, this is going to happen. There's going to be this reaction. You're going to have to deal with this. You're going to have the media, people like me asking, the whole thing. Yeah. So obviously he has to be on board with it, I would suggest. But ultimately it'll be. The other thing is, which we already touched on a little bit, is this ownership thing, because no one really knows who's paying the wages. Yeah. Come, the next, 2, 3, 4 seasons, whatever it is, and. Ten Hag, one thing I would say is I understand it. No one's told me this, but I don't think, because of FFP, I don't think a new ownership necessarily means a massive injection of cash straight away because of the FFP rules. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? So what I'm trying to say is he probably knows what his budget is, because it's not going to really change. Yeah. So this sort of thing where it's not great. Of course, it's ridiculous, really, that he doesn't know who the owners are going to be. But in terms of the sort of transfer budget, I don't think it'll necessarily.
But it's not going to be like a Chelsea scenario where
I don't think so.
Go $500 million.
But then surely they were being held to similar, supposed FFP regulations that United were, and they've found a way to sort of circumnavigate that.
They had. With these long contracts.
Yeah, but United could activate a loophole.
No, but haven't they? Wasn't this part of the, and you'll know better than I do, is these 8-year deals and these long term.
Yeah, because
was a way
then you
around
can-
that is no longer an option.
Yeah, I think maybe they stopped that length of contract.
That was the way they got around it. It's
Yeah.
like, we're spending all this money, but we're putting them on such a long-term contract that this is going to cover so many seasons or whatever. But now that you can't do that.
Those things always seem to hurt United, don't they? Like the way the Glazers bought United is now illegal. Yeah. But too late for us now, isn't it? How come Chelsea got to spend
they actually
600
called
million?
it the Glazer rule, didn't they? When Chelsea had been taken over, we're going to put a special Glazer rule in, so you can't like buy the club with a leveraged buyout after what the Glazers did. I thought, well, that was nice. Where were you in 2005?
Yeah.
When we were getting stick for protesting against it.
Yeah,
honestly.
There was one year where they changed the, like, I don't know if it was offside rule or the handball rule halfway through the season as well. And basically, 2 games later, United had what would have been a penalty before is no longer. They just think like, just
didn't
keep
they do
it
it after Bruno's goal as well? The interference. I mean, that we did
against City. You mean?
Yeah, we did have that.
Okay, maybe he did get one on that.
We did have that, but yeah, they did. They did. What are the comments saying as well?
Yeah, we've got
and stuff and just comments. Don't have to be super chats.
Yeah, this is from Jerome T. Green with the super chat. Says anything on Bart Verbruggen, young keeper from Anderlecht, future number 1 for the Dutch team, would be a great cheap get. You're a fan of him, aren't you?
I am. You laughed at me when I said his name.
Yeah, because you said it, but you didn't know what you were
Bart
saying.
Verbruggen.
I think you accidentally came out with those sort of
Bart Verbruggen.
that cluster of syllables.
Sort of Tourette's or something.
Yeah, but do you know
Bart Verbruggen? I mean, yeah.
But do you know
there's a player called that? Yeah, get him.
But do you know the sort of like chimpanzee typewriter philosophy?
Like if infinite chimpanzees will write the work.
Eventually they'll write the complete works of Shakespeare. I think if we put you on enough videos, eventually you will sort of say the syllables needed to make up a young, promising player around Europe, and you happen to get that with
I got
Verbruggen.
well lucky when I found out there was a young keeper called Bart Verbruggen. Lost it again. Bart Verbruggen. I could not believe my luck.
I've not heard of him. I'm sorry to sound really lack of knowledge.
Start hanging around with me a bit more.
With Jay.
We did basically give you a bit of context. Me and him did our wish list, a realistic wish list of players we could bring in, and I picked this kid because he thought he could be cheap, and we had a budget we'd given ourselves. And Joe thought, where have you found this one from? Where have you got this from?
But he does look promising. But obviously, like you said, we've not heard anything on that. Brian Casey, who's been a member for 4 months, says, in my opinion, we need to go all out for Kane. Even for 100 million, he'd be worth every penny.
Yeah.
We paid 70 for Casemiro, and look at his impact. Kane does even more for us.
I agree with that. I mean, 100 million for a player on a year contract is obviously not great, but he's going to guarantee you. I mean, you think about 30 goals in that Spurs team is ridiculous. That's how good he is.
Just from a journalism point of view, are you keen for United to get Kane?
Yes.
Because,
yes.
Yeah, you write about United.
Yeah, it'd be amazing.
Massive story.
Of course,
Obviously, you'll be interviewing him. You'll be interviewing the managers.
Of course, The more glitz and glamour, the better. There was a period, I can't remember, when we go on tour, the pre-season tour we're talking about, I think it might have been, say, 15-ish, 14, 15. And there was we're thinking, who are the names here? Because Rooney was towards the back end. And that, there was no one, there was no real, you had some good players, but there's no real glitz and glamour, you know what I mean?
Yeah. No, there's been a few like that. There was one summer, wasn't there, with Van Gaal, where we had some names, Falcao and Di Maria.
Yeah, I think it was the one after that then, the summer after that. Yeah, you're right, yeah.
Yeah, there was one. And then
that was a good summer.
There's one
we had Snyder and all that lot,
It was Falcao, Di Maria, Luke Shaw, Herrera, Blind, and Marcus Rojo.
Sorry, Schweinsteiger was the week.
Schweinsteiger was the one after, where it was slightly thin. It was Schneiderlin, Memphis, Darmian, Schweinsteiger on the cheap, Romero, and then at the end of the window it was Martial. But even then, Martial was pretty much an unknown.
Yeah, he was.
name.
Yeah.
But yeah, just from a journalistic perspective, it would be exciting.
Because now, if you had Kane to Fernandes, Casemiro, Varane, De Gea, who I know is dodgy, but he's a big name.
Yeah.
Luke Shaw's obviously a proper player for you. Blah blah blah. Rashford.
There was that. We're going to talk about Zlatan in a bit. There's that summer as well. Zlatan and Pogba and Mkhitaryan in the summer. That was a good one.
Yeah.
With Jose.
Oh yeah.
Because that was its own.
Yes. Soap opera.
Yes. Soap opera. And that's how it played out as well, didn't it?
Eric Bailly as well that summer.
Hey, that is pure box office.
The one remaining player.
Can't get more box office summer than that. Hey, Zlatan, Pogba, and Eric Bailly and Jose. Hey, writes itself that soap opera, doesn't it?
It absolutely does.
Hey, anyway, Joseph, as you well know, spring has sprung.
Oh, here we go.
Hey, and
straight into it.
And our friends at Manscaped, the leaders in below the waist grooming, have the best tools for some spring cleaning in your pants. Yeah, trust me. Trust me on this.
All right.
Yeah, I want you to trust me.
Okay.
Are you going to trust me or not?
It's hard after last time.
Right,
you let me down in a big way.
I didn't give you,
speak.
I didn't let you down with Manscaped, though.
No, that's true. You never
Your
did.
confidence will be blooming like the flowers Yeah, like the daffodils and that.
Yeah.
Look your best this spring and join the other 8 million men worldwide. I mean, that has rocketed up since we started.
And it is exactly 8 million as well.
It's not 8 million and one.
No.
It's 8 million. At the time of reading this, 8 million on the dot, which is amazing. That's so
You
odd.
could be the 8 million and first.
Yes. And first. Using the code Devil's20, you get 20% off and free shipping at manscaped.com. Because Manscaped are here to change the way you take care of yourselves with the Performance Package 4.0.
What do you get in the Performance Package?
You get
Great
the Lawnmower
question.
4.0 trimmer, yeah? None of this 3.0 nonsense, which just offends me. You get the Weed Whacker ear and nose hair trimmer. Have you ever used a Weed Whacker ear and nose hair trimmer?
Just a bit, mate.
Have you?
I've got it on right now.
I
and I'll tell
wonder
you
why
what,
you were looking so good.
There's more hair falling out of my nose than there was out of your head in the early 90s.
And that's a lot.
That is a lot.
Hey, he can't get enough of that Weed Whacker. Seriously, anyway I take him, he's getting his Weed Whacker out.
I'm whacking weeds left, right and centre.
Yeah, he is weed whacking his little head off.
It's a great name for it, isn't it?
It is. And with all that, you've got the skin safe technology as well. You've also got the crop preserver ball deodorant. Yeah. You've got the crop reviver. You've got the shared travel bag. You've got the performance boxer briefs with the anti-chafing technology.
How is your anti-chafing?
She's still on tablets, but she's getting there.
She struggles, doesn't she?
She does struggle, bless her, but big shout out to me anti-chafing. All you've got to do, right, even I can do this, is use the code Devil's Sweater.
Yeah.
There's a link in the description. 20% off free shipping. Manscaped.com. Just go and check it out. Yeah. Your balls will thank you this spring.
Fantastic. Thank you to
Big
Manscaped
thank
for
you.
sponsoring.
Yes, thank you to Manscaped for sponsoring us, and thank you to Jamie for sitting there and encouraging us.
And allowing us to do such things. Can I ask you, just going back slightly to the midfield situation?
Yeah.
You said about Fred and McTominay, it seeming like it's probably going to be one or the other to leave. You know.
Yeah.
Do you think that will be based on simple as who United can get more for, who's got the most interest, or is it a tactical, this person suits the plans situation?
I think it's more the money,
Yeah.
but I mean, it's also the money versus who they think they can get, maybe with that money at the time. So, but I think if you ask me it slightly differently, I think he would prefer to keep Fred.
Okay, that's what, yeah.
But I don't know if that's, you know.
But if someone's offering 45 for Fred and they're offering 25 for
Fred
McTominay.
Fred only got a year left on his deal.
He has,
as well.
yeah.
And McTominay's got a bit long, and McTominay's 25 and Fred's 29.
He's 30, I think.
30, sorry.
Yeah, that's all right.
So yeah. I agree. I do think, just from looking at the numbers of appearances, Fred seems to start and get more game time than he of late under Ten Hag. Scott McTominay, there was a lot of rumours about him going to Newcastle. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I actually don't know 100% about that. But I don't know if you've noticed that with McTominay, maybe this could be coached out of him, but he has this way of play where the ball comes to him, he always has to step on the ball first, and it immediately, that's okay if you've got lots of time, but it immediately slows down the play. It's a very boring point, sorry. But what I'm trying to get to say is, I think from Ten Hag's point of view, I think he just thinks Fred's more technically better. Do you know what I mean? I'm not saying he's an amazing player, Fred, but I think he's a little bit smoother, a bit more how Ten Hag would like a midfielder to be.
Yeah, I think with McTominay as well, it's a bit of a cliched phrase, but often, and I actually genuinely, rather than this being just a knock, you'll see his second touch is a tackle. I think maybe that's why he puts his foot on it, because he doesn't trust his touch to open his body up or whatever. So often, if he's looking up and he takes a touch, the ball bobbles away and he has to sort of crunch into something, which...
Again, it's that comparison thing. Calvin Phillips is City's sort of bench-warming midfielder, and you've got Scott McTominay, and I'm not saying Calvin Phillips is unbelievably amazing, but I do think he's a better player than McTominay. I think that McTominay, he has got it in him, where he has good games and you go, there's a player here. But for me, the issue I have is it's not frequent enough. But isn't that the issue? The very best have to be consistent, right? That's the whole point. That's what marks it out.
I've seen,
you know what I
mean? Was it David Bentley scoring hat-trick against United? Do you know what I mean? You on a day,
but that's not good enough, is it?
A player can be mint, but you want him to be consistent. I think with McTominay as well. I do like him. I do think he gets a little bit of unjust stick, but he's 25 now. He's been at the club in the first team since Jose was there. Yeah. Now is the time where he should be in that team. He should be featuring a lot, and he isn't. And I just feel like
it's a shame, really.
He's not the levels you need.
He's big, and I like him as a sort of defensive midfield player. I think he's talking about the second touch, the tackle, but I think that's more his game.
Yeah.
In a flying team, a flying United team, I could see him as a squad member who we wouldn't be talking about because he'd be being successful. He'd be coming on, maybe starting a few games, and it wouldn't be But when you're not doing that well, I know you've had a goodish season. You start looking at everyone and say, right, where can we really improve? Do you know what I'm trying to say?
No,
you can't afford the luxury of him at the moment. Is what I'm trying to say.
You made a great point as well about City's bench, because I think it was a real sort of eye-opener for everyone. And not that we probably needed one, we probably already knew that, but when you look at that bench, when you look at the fact that Pep rests his goalkeeper, he starts his second choice goalkeeper, and it doesn't hurt them at all. You've got someone like Phil Foden who's got double figures this season.
Well, a hat-trick against United.
Coming off the bench.
I'll go through some
go through the bench then, bro.
So
the cup final.
So their bench is Ake, Laporte, in the sort of defensive, high-profile options. Then in midfield, they've got Foden, Calvin Phillips, Riyad Mahrez to bring on. And then if you need a striker, you've got Julian Alvarez there as well. And
who's won the World Cup.
And obviously Ederson as well, who's probably been in the top 2 goalkeepers in the Premier League for the last 5 years. Our bench in comparison is, if you need some defensive options, Dallo, pretty good actually. That's a good one. And Malacia, an area where we're not too bad. Then obviously it's Maguire is he is what he is, and he's also the only centre back on the bench. Then in midfield, if we're struggling there, it is Scott McTominay, Facundo Pellistri and Garnacho, but again, those latter two are sort of wingers more than central midfielders. Central midfielders, it is only Scott McTominay on the bench, and then if we're not scoring any goals and we need something where they can bring on Mahrez, who I think was their top scorer last season, Foden, we've got Wout Weghorst to bring on. Like the difference there is.
Well, Mahrez scored a hat-trick in the semi-final, and he didn't get on in the final. That's what I mean.
It is mad levels, isn't it?
Yeah,
and it is frustrating, and it sort of shows you what Ten Hag has to do, because, like you were saying, January infuriated me. It really did. I don't want to sort of hammer Weghorst, because it's not his fault, and he tries his best, but the kid was on loan from Burnley for a reason.
And he hadn't scored any Premier League goals. I mean, that's why I did that piece, because at the time I thought there's a missed opportunity. It just was the latest, if you need it, but it's just spoke volumes about the Glazers failing to sort of really go for all they're bothered about is top 4. That is the proof. Since Ferguson left, you've never challenged properly for the title. From, you know what I mean? Where you thought, right, okay, I know you've been up there for little patches.
19 points behind City.
Exactly. You know what I mean? It's just the lack of
title challenge.
And this is the big moment as well, where we tend to do this thing where we'll give you money if you fail to get top 4. We'll give you some money so you get back there, and then once you get there, we don't go all in to push for the title. It's like, what's the point in... Genuinely, what is the point in United being in top 4 if our squad isn't good enough to compete for the Champions League anyway, and we then don't go and push on for a title? Just finishing 3rd every year, yes, it's nice, but that's Tottenham's ambition, not Man United. As a United fan, I want to see us go to try and win the Champions League, not just be in it. Galatasaray are in it. Ghent are in it occasionally. Like, that's not enough. We're there because we want to try and win it, and the Glazers don't ever push for that.
Do you know what will be interesting? If you get a new owner, what happens to, for example, your director of football, John Murter? What happens to
Richard Arnold?
Exactly. Yeah. Will they? And the reason why I mention this, I actually think Murter's done very well, but some of the signings, I know it's a bit of a hoary chestnut, but Akanji came in last summer for City for £17 million, right? It's 1.7. That's nothing, right? That's chicken feed, right? And look, he's the first choice for them. Yeah. That says something about their scouting, right? Do you know what I mean? Football's actually quite simple. Get a really top manager. You've got one. Get really top players now. Yeah. But the players is interesting because it's about identifying. Now, when when you bought, what was the Brazilian last summer? The Brazilian winger, Anthony. So, it sort of started to look like every player Ten Hag signed was kind of, sort of either Ajax or he knew him from the Netherlands. Yeah. Well, it's interesting because, as I understand it, how it works there is they have lists, and basically those players were already on the list and he liked them. But what I'm trying to say is I just wonder if as time goes on, it'll be more and more Ten Hag's. Because, I actually think the manager. I understand why you have a football director, but I actually think the manager really should. If he's really good, he should be identifying players, and it should be really his choice because, he has to play with them. Do you know what I mean? Like at City, they always say Bergerstein is sort of as important as Guardiola, but I just don't really buy that at all. Are you telling me that the City signed a player that Guardiola's a little bit unsure about? But that's kind of what they will tell you at United, that it's all about. It doesn't really matter who the manager is. It's who's overarching, with the transfer policy. But I just wonder if this summer. So I think he wants De Jong still. You know what I mean?
It's interesting you say that as well, Jay, because I remember a few years ago you wrote a piece about Woodward. Now it was almost like post-Fergie, it's almost the Woodward era.
Yeah.
Not rather than a Jose era or a Van Gaal era or a Moyes era. He's been the sort of the one who's been there overseeing everything. And that was a big bugbear I had with Glazers. Yes, they've been horrible and they've taken money out of the club and they've left us with all this debt and they don't care. But also the fact that you had people that didn't know about football. Because the point you make about Fergie Stanley is a valid one, but at least he's a football guy.
No, definitely.
Do you know what I mean? Where Woodward just was
a banker.
But I think they've got that right at City, because what they got there is they've got a guy who played for Barcelona. I think he was in the Cruyff team that won the...
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So he played properly. Whereas Woodward, as time went on, Woodward tried to say... There may have been an element of truth to this. Look, I presented it wrongly. It wasn't really me who was signing these players. I just allowed that to be perception. We did have a football committee, but I'm not so sure. I think, in a way, even though the manager's the most important football person, of course he or she is, but actually the ownership. If you get, I know it's an obvious thing to say, but Woodward. I think Arnold has learnt a lot from what I hear. I think he kind of. He's never said this to me, of course, but I think privately he thought what Woodward was doing wasn't great, and he's really tried. I hear stuff about, he's sort of, understands that there was massive mistakes made, and he's really determined. So this is why it's interesting if a new ownership come in, whether he gets jettisoned, because I wouldn't be surprised, not because I know anything, but because often that is what happens. And I'll tell you what, I might have mentioned this to you before, but. Who is it lost his job at Chelsea, didn't he, Tuchel? What was it, a year and a half after winning the Champions League?
Yeah, a year.
Why did that happen? I mean, there must have been something internal, but you're telling me that the guy who came from Brighton Potter was any better than Tuchel? No. I mean, so what I'm trying to say is you do hope that, if you're Ten Hag, there's no job security. I don't think they will get rid of him. There would be absolute outcry from fans, but you just don't know, do you? Because you just don't know.
We were talking about the FA Cup final before, and I was saying one good thing for me would be if he wins the FA Cup, I think that eliminates even the slimmest possibility of a new owner coming in and not backing him properly. Because even though I agree, he is a great manager and I like what he's doing, I still think you can never count out that a new owner could come in and go. And if, let's say Ten Hag, like Tuchel did, as a rough patch, as a few results don't go his way, a new owner might be waiting for an excuse to go, right,
that's it,
I'm going to bring in the man that I wanted, which would be a shame. Just on the ownership, you wrote an article, and I think the last one that I read was a little bit about the Qatar bid, Sheikh Jassim making a further bid. Are we just waiting now?
Yeah, so the last time I checked, if they had heard, this is the Sheikh's whatever crew, gang, people.
The Sheikh's gang.
Firm.
The
team.
The firms,
was I think it was last Friday. They still hadn't heard anything. So when the third bid was what, 3-4 weeks ago? 3 weeks ago?
Yeah,
middle of May?
So
that may well have changed because we're now on... Monday today, is it?
Yeah, it's Monday, June the 5th, I think it is.
Right.
Yeah.
So
correct.
So, but that was as of sort of lastminute.com. It was Thursday actually. It was Thursday evening. So I mean, there is a school of thought that they were waiting for the season to end, the Glazers, but I don't really think they. I think it's just a money thing, and who knows what's going to happen? They certainly don't know. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I hear it's the same on Ratcliffe's side. They're a little bit in the dark. I think it is all about money. Yeah. Whatever deal is better, because whatever the price is, you probably got to add on if you want to sort out the stadium, which I think they both said they're going to. That's another $2 billion in it to sort that out. Then the training ground.
It was interesting because a lot of the sort of the Sheikh Jassim bid, the sort of the plus points to that seem to be about the infrastructure. Investing in the team, investing in the stadium, investing in the training facilities, which is great, and you need all that. But then you think, do the Glazers care about that?
Yeah.
Do they care?
No, I think that's more.
Do once you've got
I think that's more for the fans, though. Yeah, you know what I mean.
It did seem to be that a lot of that bid was about what we're going to do. Whereas we're hearing with Ratcliffe bid, I don't know how true it is, but there's a lot of people reporting it. I know you've spoken to Kieran Maguire, aren't you, from the Price of Football.
That'll be going out this evening.
You can shed some light on it.
Yeah.
A lot of it was how to get the club. Maybe the Glazers stay on as minority shareholders. Maybe there's two of them that do. Maybe it's structured where they stay on for 3 years and then they move. Yeah. It seems to be more focused on not what you're going to do with what you've got it once you've got it, but actually getting it.
Yeah. It seems like at the moment that Ratcliffe, is coming at it from more of a sort of business, using some business tricks here, like not just going, you've got something, I want it, here's the money to buy it, give it to me, which is a bit more seemingly the sort of the Sheikh Jassim's approach of, you've got this thing, I want to have that thing, here's enough money. Whereas Ratcliffe's being a bit sort of more creative, I would say, with how he's doing it. He's, and whether you like it or you don't, that seems to be, he's pandering to the business side of the Glazers, which is, we want money now, but we also want a potential payout later down the line. If you make United worth twice what it is now, we want some of that.
Yes.
And he's so kind of giving them a bit more of that side of things, isn't he?
Yeah, I mean...
Or offering that.
Again, this is not really based on any hard facts, but I would be surprised if it doesn't end up being the Sheikh, only because, obviously he's Qatari and they don't like to lose face.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And this is about, a bit like the World Cup, really. This is about positioning themselves, a bit like what, the Abu Dhabi owners of City and Newcastle, obviously with Saudi Arabians. So I just don't see a world. On the one hand, I'm told continually he won't overpay or won't overpay. But you're not going to sit there at the start or in the middle or wherever we are, 3 or 4 bids in saying, oh yeah, I'm going to overpay. You don't tell people like me. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. But so what I'm trying to say is, I think when it comes to it, I completely hear what you're saying, but I think part of the issue is Rain, who's obviously doing the sale for the Glazers. They will be, how can I say this? They will doing the best they possibly can, because they'll be on like a percentage or something. To get the best deal for the Glazers. So you don't know how much of this is. I'm not going to say it's misinformation, but let's just say, they're putting messages out there to sort of bump up the price, and
they're doing everything they can to get as much money as possible for the Glazers, aren't they? Of course.
It's all subject to NDAs. That's why, non-disclosure agreements. That's why it's difficult to get any information because legally a lot of stuff they can't go there. Now, you will still get told stuff which maybe contravenes that, but who's going to prove it ever? Blah 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 blah. But what I'm trying to say is so it's difficult. This is why, as I understand it, they've started, dealing or trying to deal directly with the Glazers because they themselves, this is the Sheikh's people, and obviously Sir Jim on his side don't know how much of what is around coming out from Rain is, sort of credible, really.
Right.
I
saw that. I've been saying an article just sort of cutting out the middleman. Going straight to. I mean,
but of course the Glazers won't necessarily want that because they want Rain in the way because they can use Rain as well.
They want that PR and that story and that spin to be
so
out
it's
there.
It's all a little bit. I mean, as I've said umpteen times, I'm not a fan, but I can understand how unbelievably frustrating it must be because you just want these people out. You know what I mean?
And the fact that it seems like whenever you sort of. The suggestion is that it might be coming to an end, or that this is the last round of bidding. It just there's oh no, we found a new one. There's another. Bring it out. There you go. There's another round of bidding. Like have another go, lads.
Exactly. So the information at the very start of this was by the end of Q1 they wanted it done and dusted, which was March.
I know.
No, never any chance of that. I would now be surprised if you have a new owner in place. I'm not saying it won't happen, but surprised. So not staggered, but surprised if the new owner's in place for the start of the season. I just don't.
That's massively worrying, isn't it? Especially when you say. I mean, I know, like you pointed out earlier, FFP, and it doesn't mean that you've got loads of money to spend if you've got a new owner, but you've obviously got more money to spend if you've got an owner who's got money behind him.
Because you can plan for the future, you know you're going to have that.
I think as well, if you were Jim Ratcliffe or Sheikh Jassim, you would want there is no better PR for either of those people and groups, or however you want to look at it, than a successful and exciting transfer window. There is no better way to start your Manchester United tenure than signing Harry Kane, Kim Min-jae, a goalkeeper, Rabiot, whoever it may be, Mason Mount, all of these people. You spend 250 million. Welcome to Manchester. That's exactly what they want. So if they're getting in at the end of the summer, that's the worst time for them because you've got the whole season before you get to do it.
Yeah, it's weird because a few months ago, for me, it was like, I'm just not into sports washing and I don't want any sports washing. I'd be a bit of a hypocrite because I was very critical when City owners came in and I was like, oh, look how great it is for East Manchester and look at what they've done and all this. And I'm thinking, but where's that money coming from and what is this about? They're not City fans, it's sports washing. The Newcastle thing, Saudi Arabia, what happened to Jamal Khashoggi, stuff like that. It's like, it's distasteful. So to me, Jim Ratcliffe looked like the better option because, you can argue about environmental issues and I get that, but it looks a lot better than sports washing. Yeah. But the issue with Sir Jim Ratcliffe is, there's talk of the Glazers staying on. So there's no happy answer for me personally, sure. And it disappoints me, but it's become so divisive and it's become so much mudslinging amongst United fans and Qatari or Sir Jim Ratcliffe and all this sort of stuff. And you can't even I used to say it'll just be great when the Glazers are gone. Now we don't even know if they're going to be gone because there's a scenario where they stay on. So for me, Though it's not really an answer, the perfect one looked like, not the perfect one, the better one looked like what Sir Jim seemed to be offering a year ago when he was first linked with it, of taking over the club, getting rid of the Glazers, coming in and think, okay, I can buy into that. But now it's like he's keeping the Glazers on, where the other one is, you've got the Qatari bid, which, okay, maybe Sheikh Jassim is just this individual with a lot of money who's nothing to do with the state, but I struggle to believe that when his dad was a prime minister, and also part of the reason he's meant to have this unlimited wealth is because he's got access to this state bid. So it's just a bit of a, what can you stomach most? Can you stomach more the Glazers, or can you stomach being part of a state-owned club? And it's nothing against Qatar, by the way. I wouldn't want to be owned by the British state. Any state.
I agree with that.
I've got no issue with Qatar at all. It's just owning Manchester United. I just prefer if we were part of a state-owned enterprise personally. But I get why people just like get the Glazers gone, whoever owns.
Yeah. I'm the same really, but I would go slightly further and say I would prefer it to be Jim Ratcliffe. Yeah. Just for those reasons. Like, I wouldn't want Boris Johnson to own Man United, or Boris Johnson's son to own Man United, or it's like
which one?
Yeah, exactly.
Like, this is like
he couldn't tell you.
Like Donald Trump Jr. buying Man United.
Yeah, sure.
I wouldn't want that. I don't want to be a sort of so closely linked to wherever the money has come from, but the sort of political arm of a nation. I don't want that to be anything to do with Manchester United, really. And, that's before any sort of human rights or that sort of situation that would obviously have to be looked at. So I think I would prefer, like you said, the ideal scenario is Jim Ratcliffe, no Glazers for me. Yeah. That doesn't seem to be an option. But of the options available, unfortunately, I think the idea of the Glazers being involved but not having any power whatsoever is slightly preferable.
As I'm sitting here,
the alternative.
I was discussing that. I'm trying to think of an entity. So it doesn't have to be a person, but an entity. So it is a person or a company who would be a good owner, who would be like a good owner for United in terms of, who could you imagine in the world, someone rich enough who you'd think, they would just be like, good owners. There'd be nothing sort of morally suspect, or he'll be part of a state. It's difficult, isn't it? It's difficult, though, isn't it?
It's like when Elon Musk
start thinking about
Elon Musk bought Twitter. Exactly. There's a lot of people going, he's like Elon Musk does electric cars. He's, you know what I mean? He's quite a progressive guy, and he seems like he seems like he's just right-wing troll at the times. You're like, what is going on there?
The thing with Musk is, if you, like you said, when you look at the sort of selection of possible billionaires to buy United, it's very. I think the one thing you could say about Musk, and I wouldn't want him to own United, but the biggest negative, or not the biggest, but the most common negative you see about him is he's a bit of a sort of loser, isn't it? Like, his jokes aren't funny. He is a bit
hashtag orcs.
Yeah, he's just a bit of an awkward 50-year-old bloke tweeting like anime memes, and you think, I get it, but you're meant to be one of the most powerful men in the world. However, in terms of human rights history, he seems. Although then there's the whole thing with where his family money came from. Like, there's no good answer.
That's kind of what I'm getting at.
Yeah.
So
it's horrible, and it's very divisive. And I get it.
You almost want like a billionaire hound or dormouse. So they've got no moral baggage. They're just
someone who just won the lottery. Is there ever been a lottery where someone won 50 billion? I want that person to own United.
That's perfect. I'll fix that. Even then, like, it'd be someone. Like we do it, and then you go, well, Jay got nicked when he was 18, and he's got. Have you checked out his criminal record? He's hardly clean, that lad.
Yeah, footage of him throwing a Scotch egg at a swat.
Yeah,
he's a bad un. He's a bad un.
You'd be like, do you know what? Forget it. Keep your club.
We've got loads of super chats. Aaron Quinn says, we talk about relegation teams in England, talking about players like Lavio, etc. from Southampton, but what about the relegated teams in other top countries? Any potential bargains there? So we've got. The relegated teams in other countries.
You've done well there, because I was about to say, I'm glad you didn't quiz. Well, we would have quizzed you, Jay. To be honest with you, that'd have been your that's on you, bro. Yeah, there you go. You tell us who got relegated in all these countries.
I think Elche in Spain, Espanyol.
Oh yeah, of course.
Do you know any of their best players?
No, but you do.
There's that lad.
All right, then, who are you getting from Cremonese and Sampdoria? Nothing.
From Sampdoria.
Embarrassing.
David Platt still play for them.
Yeah.
Ruud Gullit.
Hertha Berlin, Schalke.
Yeah, why not?
All right, then who are you getting from Angers in France?
You can't just make teams up.
Okay, that's the answer to that one. Thank you very much for the super chat. Next up is Mike93, says Ten Hag needs to be fully back this summer. It's clear he's got great vision to take us where we need to be, and the club needs to be behind him. That's sort of echoing your point there. I completely agree with that. Danny says, if new owners come in, why aren't the government/Prem getting involved regarding the debt, being as it's now illegal? Surely that would have to be sorted. That's an interesting point. Is that...
I don't think it can be backdated though, right?
No, but I think they mean no new owner could come in and maintain and keep the debt. Is that the case, or do we not know?
I think I'm guessing. I don't know for sure, but I'm guessing they could, because again that debt existed before. It's not the new owner's sort of fault, if you know what I mean.
Okay.
They're sort of inheriting that.
Good question, though. I'm not sure of the details of that legally. Cameron S., who's been a member for 32 months. Thank you very much, Cameron. Said, we cannot bring back Mason. We heard and saw the pictures and audio. It's important that the club get this right and listen to the women within the club. I personally completely agree with that, to be honest.
That is a big point in it.
Listen, all I'm reflecting is the thinking at the club.
No. That's your opinion. No, we get that.
Yeah,
I get that. And I think this is sort of the fly in the ointment, for want of a better expression. But when you're dealing with, we're talking about Mason Greenwood, you're not just talking about these charges, you're talking about the audio everyone heard.
Yeah.
And obviously there's those pictures, and you can argue one way or about pictures, but that audio everyone heard, there's pretty much obvious it was him. So it's difficult to unhear that and to ignore that as well, which is why I don't think it's been as clear cut as, well, the charges dropped, get the kid back in the squad, because there's obviously another element to this.
Yeah, definitely.
Before we do Wally of the Week, we talked about Zlatan earlier. Zlatan Ibrahimovic retiring at the age of 41. Yeah, so there's hope for all of us. When you were covering United, when he was there, what was he like? Did you ever have to deal with him? Did you ever have to?
Good question. I don't know if maybe I had one sort of mixed zone experience with him. I liked him. I just thought he wasn't the right centre forward for you. For how United should play. But that's just my humble opinion. Yeah. Because when he came back from the injury at your place, and then as I think you said earlier, I thought, I've been staggered and fair play to him. When was that, 2018, 17?
2017 to 18
yeah,
season.
So what we're now 5 years, he's done another 4 or 5 years at the very top.
And including
2 years at LA Galaxy.
Going to America, which seems to be the end, and then coming back to Europe. And not just that, but winning Serie A with AC Milan for the first time in a decade or whatever it was since they'd won it. I know he was injured toward the end, but he was certainly a big part of that.
He scored 90 goals since he left United.
Has he really?
So about 40 of them are in US, if you want to be critical of that. But still a big chunk of them are in Serie A.
How many United players have scored that many? Rashford? Has Martial, maybe?
For some reason, the main memory I've got of him is when you won the Europa League under Jose, he was on crutches and just coming on the pitch. And so I think he threw it away.
Do you remember? He wasn't messing about.
I think he threw it away, his crutch, and was like, but that just sticks in my mind as sort of classic him. He was obviously, he must have been gutted not to play, but he was genuinely pleased for his, you know what I mean? Because despite all the stuff about, he's a bit arrogant, I don't know him at all, but he seems to obviously he's got everything to back up the arrogance. He's been an amazing player, but I think he's actually quite, I don't think he's a selfish person. You know what I mean? He seemed pleased then for his. I remember watching him thinking, he could have just sort of held back, but he was sort of basically celebrating. I mean, it was a quarter final, wasn't it? I think, was it against Feyenoord when he got injured? It was definitely a Europa League game, maybe the semi final. But he scored 27 goals, didn't he?
Yeah, 27 goals.
Ridiculous that. How old was he then? 36 or something? Yeah. In the Premier League, that's brilliant. Yeah.
He seemed to have a good relationship with Paul Pogba as well. Yeah. Where Pogba, I think, respected him. He respected Jose.
Yeah. Jose loved him, didn't he?
Scenario.
Yeah, that triangle of sort of respect and friendship.
And then once you took Zlatan out of it, Jose and Pogba had their issues.
Zlatan was like the shoulder to cry on for both of them, you know what I mean?
Yeah, so that was a shame.
Before we do Wally of the Week, sorry,
Mason. Said looking at me fixedly.
No, we've never had a guest be Wally of the Week, so we're not going to start that now.
Yeah, come on, let's do it.
We are amongst friends.
There were a few messages about the shirt earlier, but people seem to have got used to it.
This is my usual.
But Mason Mount, we haven't spoken about.
Oh yeah.
What what seems to be the interest there? How likely does that seem?
It seems now. I think it'd be a surprise if it doesn't happen.
Okay.
I think there might be a little bit of a sticking point about the price from Chelsea's end, but that you're going to get that bit of haggling, an extra sort of 5 or 10 million. What was interesting for me is where does he play? What is his position? I know I should know this, but I have seen him play so many times. He seems to either play on the left.
Yeah.
Or like a number 10. So I don't see him getting in ahead against Fernandes. So is he looking at Eriksen thinking, he's a replacement for him?
I think that's
what maybe.
We've got a video coming out about that tomorrow, actually, where we've sort of looked at the data and looked at what Mason Mount is good at and comparing that to what Eriksen is good at, and can he be a sort of younger, slightly more... Because actually his defensive numbers, they're not Casemiro levels, but his tackling and his ball winning is actually better than you might think.
I'm sure we all know this, everyone watching it, but it should not be forgotten, he created the Champions League winning goal for Chelsea, so he's got that on his CV, Mason. It was brilliant, he's done it.
CV, is it?
And so he knows he can do it in that sort of game against City, Champions League, you know what I mean? So he's got something about him. You know, to be honest, I'm surprised Chelsea let him go because he seems to me like he's homegrown and all that, and I'm surprised.
Yeah, he went out on loan, didn't he, for a while.
Yeah,
and then when he had the transfer ban, I think.
Yeah, so
he seems like the sort of player that Poch would love as well. Like to me, like
I think it's a money thing, maybe in terms of the wages they're offering him. Sorry,
they're a mess now, aren't they?
Yeah, unbelievable.
Unreal.
I think it's a good sign. I mean, are you
I wasn't
excited
that mad about him. Not gonna
okay, fair enough.
When we were linked with him, I was a bit like, but the more you look at it, you go, okay. And plus, there's that whole thing of Ten Hag, you trust this manager.
Yes.
When we signed Eriksen, I'll be honest with you, I wasn't that, oh my God, Christian Eriksen. Yeah, he's been mint up until like after his injury.
Yeah, he's faded a little bit,
at the levels he was. But a fantastic player the first sort of 2/3 of the season. You could argue as well, like, I'm not saying he's going to be as good, but Martinez, I thought Martinez didn't know a lot about him coming. Amazing. Amazing player.
Yeah.
And you think that if Ten Hag wants him, it's for a reason.
Definitely.
And Ten Hag, you know, he's getting the best out of Marcus, Aaron Wan-Bissaka, Luke Shaw. He gets the best out of players. So
and that's a big
if
thing.
If he wants him, I'm all right with it.
Sorry, that's a big thing as well, where you're talking before about consistency. I think a lot of what great managers do is, yes, they raise the levels of players, but I think more than anything, they keep the levels of players. Yeah. I think the thing that Fergie did so well is Rooney was great every season.
Yeah, no, you're right. Yeah.
Ronaldo, obviously, once he got there, was great. Scholes, same.
Really good point.
I think if you can get that 2021-22 season out of Mason Mount, 13 goals, 16 assists, I think Ten Hag, hopefully, can get that out of him every season. Yeah. You've got one of the best midfielders in... Certainly one of the most productive midfielders in the league. Right. I mean, like, let's get that level all the time, and then there's no question.
Observing Guardiola sort of relatively close and personally, you know, as a press conference and all that, the guy's unbelievable. You know, a bit like Ferguson. I know you probably don't want to compare a City manager to, but you know, in terms of his sort of, just like, yeah, we might have won this, but you know, forget about that. Let's go to the net. And I think Ten Hag's a bit like that. Do you know what I mean? I think he's like obsessively driven.
You know, even Sabitzer showed us something when he came here, didn't he? Do you know what I mean? Like, there's Ten Hag has players that he wants for a reason. Yeah. I mean, I know Vegas is probably one that everyone lampoons or criticises, but even for the first few months, he was doing the job.
He created Rashford's goal, didn't he, in the Carabao Cup final?
Like, so there's always a sort of method behind it, and especially
Yeah.
when this is a signing he's not been forced to make because he hasn't got the money. But it's someone he.
What's the price to save him out? 70, 60?
I think they start. United are coming in at 50. Chelsea want 80. So they might meet halfway. He's only got a year left on his contract, hasn't he?
Maybe we could get like a 60 plus add-ons type situation or something.
For a young English midfielder who, like you say, is a Champions League winner, and he's more or less an England regular, isn't he? He might not start under Gareth Southgate, but he's in the team a lot. Before we wrap up then, should we do our Wally of the week? Do you know how this works, Jay? You've been on this podcast.
Yeah, go on,
before.
just remind me.
It's literally someone who's been a Wally last week, someone who stood out for you in the public sphere, or it might be someone you know.
Sport or just generally?
Sport or general. Ooh. Usually I'm... Shall I kick off if anyone... Do you want
it tends to be... We try and go with sport, but then
Jay
will come along with the politician often.
I'm not going to go political this week, though.
You're joking?
Okay, no. I know. I've got my answer.
Yeah. Go on, I'm not going to... This week... Listen... I never thought I'd say this after we lost the cup final to City, but one of the worst things was when I went on social media and I seen some of the behaviour of a so-called United fan in a shirt that was just beyond the pale. I'm not going to give him any more attention. You know what I'm on about, but he's more than... I'm not going to swear, but I think he's been nicked. He's a Britain First person as well, which just sums it all up from what I've read about it. An absolute whopper, and I don't want anyone like that representing his fan base, so I hope he's eating his pottage.
Very well said.
And before people come at me, well, City fans are, inflatable airplanes and all that. Yeah. I get it, right? That's City's problem. I don't want people like that guy representing my football club because it's not about that.
Yeah, I agree. And let them police their fans. Yeah. And obviously we can be pissed off at anything anyone does, but if it's a United fan,
exactly,
that needs calling out.
It's just like, and then you have everyone like, look at typical United fan. He's not a typical United fan. He's a typical muppet.
Yeah.
Sorry, Jay.
Right. So my Wally of the week, we mentioned him earlier, and I know it looks like they finally are hiring, or he is hiring a manager, but it's Daniel Levy, because why when did Conte go? When was that? I mean, come on. I think they were in the Champions League place, maybe third at the time. So why is it like 6th, 7th choice? Nothing against Mr. Ange Postecoglou.
Yes.
You know, it's not his fault.
He's
like so sort of low down. But what has happened there? So it's Daniel Levy.
Do you know what? One thing on Daniel Levy, I will never ever understand. And Jose mentioned this the other day.
Oh yeah, why he sacked him?
Yeah, I know. Like
you're gonna win that cup out with him.
If you want anyone to go toe to toe with Pep Guardiola in a final, You would literally, in every
Guardiola
world,
relieved.
you would pick Jose, wouldn't you?
Yeah, of course
I'm not
you
saying he
would.
would have done it, but you think
you would.
he's probably the best person on the planet to do it.
100%.
And no disrespect, but it ain't Ryan Mason. You wouldn't go, well, I've got Ryan Mason waiting, so that's why I got rid of Jose. Absolute sabotage. Unreal. So, I hear that.
Mine would be... I would say Jermaine Genius, but I think the BBC sport coverage generally, punditry and commentary generally of the cup final was like bizarre. It was like
was it really that bad?
Everything
Because I was at the game.
Everything they said felt like it was written before the game.
Right. Okay.
So that, like certain things like. At half time, I think City had had 6 shots, United had had 5 shots or 4 shots or something. And obviously City had had a lot more possession. But even then, it was only 60-40. It wasn't this Real Madrid 75-25 that you see occasionally. And yet, watching it, you were sort of made to believe that United had been dominated. It was a walk in the park for City. It was 1-1 at half time. And Micah Richards said, I think United have been tactically naive. And you think their best player, arguably the best player in the world, Erling Haaland, didn't play, which is obviously, he did, but it seemed like he did.
I gave him a 5 out of 10 in my mark.
And
for this reason.
It's a fair play because you looked at the back four and you thought he might get some joy here from the 2 centre backs,
and he didn't. And yet, and so we stopped that. They hardly created any chances in open play at all, which I think again this City team in current form is a real testament to United. And I think that was down to the tactics. And yet we were sort of told it was like they'd written this script that City with this imperious, untouchable Goliath sort of storming and steamrolling their way to a treble, and nothing United did would make a dent in that kind of vision of the game.
So
and
is it everyone who works at the BBC, including the tea lady, is the Wally of the week?
No, it's just on that day I felt like
we've all done shifts at the BBC, we were just, so we have to be careful there.
Yeah, exactly, and excellent organisation. But it felt like it was a window into a predetermined storyline rather than an actual analysis of the game. It was just shit.
Who was on the panel with Micah Richards?
It was Richards, Schmeichel, and I don't remember.
2 City legends.
Two
hardcore City
fans. I saw a funny thing on
legends,
Twitter back in what you were saying, obviously a United fan, I suppose, but every time Jermaine Jennings opens his mouth, he might as well just sing Blue Moon. Yeah. Because he was like, it was really anti-United.
It was bizarre. And I even saw, on different social media and on Reddit as well, where non-United fans saying the same thing, where it was like almost strange how kind of City focused it was. But I understand they won the game, and I think, on the balance of things, they probably deserved it. But
listen, I don't
it
think
wasn't
one-sided
it wasn't a destruction.
It was a good game. It was a good game, and it could have gone either way. It was simple as that. You gave away 2 soft goals. You even used the word soft. If David De Gea had actually maybe dived and saved, you know what I mean? You could have, I know could have, should have, but anyway.
It wasn't, and it sounds sad, but after that start as well, I was almost relieved it was only 2-1. Do you know what I mean? I had my lad with me, and I thought this is going to be on. It was about 5-6-0, and it was. We at least made a bit of a game.
Can I do an anti-Wally of the week very quickly? Now, I know you've mentioned an absolute what's it, but the fans seem to be really getting on all right. Considering that there was a lot of... I know that's maybe not a bit cheesy to say, but I was pleasantly surprised. I thought there was going to be rooks and idiots, but it didn't seem to be anything.
There was a bit of my everything on the tube. I saw a video did around. My mate who was there, actually. His lad got a bottle thrown near him. He had to cover him.
Take it
no. I'm not saying that was... my experience myself of being there was fine. There was no dramas. I took my little lad who was on
that's what made me think of it. So
because there was always potential for it to be quite a violent day.
So it could have been a lot worse, especially when you hang around with Stephen Alson. I thought, oh my God, we're going to get absolutely rushed, but we were fine. Jay, have you got anything to plug? Any new books out?
Well,
got A Season in the Red or The Red Apprentice? What's next?
So it's Monday, right? Yeah. So on Wednesday, the last but one chapters of my Ten Hag book, published on my Substack. Take a look at Jamie Jack's Substack, and then beyond that, just go with the flow.
Yeah. What about
it's called the book's called Because They Can Play Effing Good Football, which is obviously a Ten Hag quote after you beat Liverpool the first time in August, after you just lost at Brentford and all that.
Yeah, I love that. Go and check that out. We'll put a link in the description. Always good stuff. Jay, always a pleasure having you on the channel, man. Thanks for all your support. Well.
Thank you for coming on.
To the early days,
of course.
Devil's days, man.
Fair play.
Joseph, where can people find you? What are you up to?
Oh, just chilling out and that. Sloppy Joe's podcast coming out tomorrow.
Yeah?
Yeah.
That's you and producer Ethan and Joe McGrath as well.
Yeah, check it out.
Looking forward to that.
Nice. Where can we find you?
You know where to find me. I'm
Here?
just lingering
Any
around.
chance?
Lingering around the streets of Manchester and Salford.
Smoking ciggies outside a spa.
Lingering around. What is it? Malingering.
Yeah.
Is that it?
Malingerer, yeah.
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
Yeah, whatever. You know where to find me anyway. So go and check out Jamie. Go and check out Joe. This has been the Paddock Podcast. Big thanks as well to Manscaped for sponsoring us. Don't forget to hit like, share, and subscribe. Thanks for watching.